Hello, world. This is Korean Science, Theology, Philosophy, and Spirituality, the LGBTQ Center for Science, Theology, Philosophy, and Spirituality. And this is a somber video about what has happened in New Zealand at two mosques in Christchurch, where over 49 people have been killed and dozens have been injured. And it's a very sad story or sad event that has happened because it's a terrorist attack. And, the same discussions will go on about terrorism and how the fact that terrorism is not connected to religion. And this is a new realization that people they have to understand about what has happened in New Zealand. It is really about the culture wars that are going on all over the world. And yes, it's a fact. Cultures will be fighting each other, religions fight each other, as long as those religions are in the world. It's a fact. And we are an interfaith center. And one of our purposes is to encourage people of different faiths to understand their faith and the faiths of other people. And to know that we have diverse faiths, but we are all one. These diverse faiths are one. Yes, that's what people need to understand. It's a very hard thing to understand. That's why there are attacks like these that come up once in a while. I mean, a few months ago, Kenya was attacked also in terrorism. There was a terrorist attack in Kenya. And then now we have another terrorist attack in New Zealand, but it's by non-Muslims against Muslims. And the one in Kenya was by Muslims against non-Muslims. So you see, there's a game of tit for tat. And it's because the world is become multicultural. And why is the world multicultural? And because it's multicultural, there will be tensions because people are meeting new cultures they have never met before. Islam is a new culture in Europe and the West. Yes, it has never happened that mosques are being built in the West. That's what you need to understand, what is happening in the West. So because of this new entrance in Western society and Western culture, there are these attacks that are happening, these tensions, and it's not everybody. Many people in the West are very tolerant to different cultures. That's why Syrians are running to Europe. They're not running to the Arab world. They're running to Europe. Europe is good to live in. There is a lot of care by the governments, and development is also good, and they are the human development index is very good in the West. So it's good for someone someone migrating to the West is a sane person. Yes. And that's what many Muslims have been doing. But as they have been moving to the West, they have been bringing their culture, which a few people who are on the fringe and really are very paranoid of any new culture, especially a culture that is also involved in a lot of geopolitical issues with the West, and a lot of anti-Western ideology. So it makes the people very paranoid, especially people who have not traveled out of their home countries and they study things like Islam. So when now they see Muslims, They say these guys are invaders and they are not welcomed. And so that's what's happening. So you need to understand that in the 21st century, the war is basically between Islamic culture and non-Islamic culture. However, that war is not being fought by everybody. Not everybody is in that war. That's what you need to know. So it is only between people who do not appreciate multiculturalism. They are not tolerant of other religious views, of other political views. That is what's happening. These are the people who are involved in the war, in the fight, because even ISIS is there. You know, the ideology, ISIS has been finished geographically and physically, but ideologically it's not been finished. It's because the same ideology that drives Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab and all of this is the same ideology that drives ISIS. That's what you need to know. There is a sentiment that the West, because they are non-Muslims, they should not conquer Muslim nations. So whenever the West conquers Muslim nations, these fundamentalist Muslims, not all Muslims, fundamentalist, people who believe that they have to fight, they are terrorists. Basically, a terrorist is someone who uses violence to propagate their beliefs. Yes, that's terrorism. And if you go and read Wikipedia, even states can commit terror. Yes, anybody can commit terror. And it's because it's the use of violence, destruction and death. That's why, to me, I still believe terrorism is just war. Yeah, it's just fighting and killing and destruction, because in war that's what happens. So the only problem with terrorists is that they are not an army. They are not an organized army. They are just violent people who are on the loose, and they cause mayhem like this. And in fact, that's why terrorism is very it succeeds. It's because it's not an organized group of people. Someone just wakes up in the morning and decides to blow up people, and the guy has no army uniform, he has no army fatigue, he just wakes up. So that's why terrorism is a very big issue in the world. And of course, we're going to do a video about that. But this was just to say, sorry. Of course, according to Christianity, I've been doing a series about death. And these days, I'm not so affected because of that understanding that the understanding that Jesus Jesus is the one who holds the keys of death and hell. That's what you need to know. It's still a very tough message. In fact, we're going to have a playlist called Hard Meat. You know, Paul said that when that there are some hard things he could not teach people because they were so hard for people to understand. And one of them is what I'm trying to say, is people need to understand that God knows everything, at least according to Christianity. And I've told you, this is an interfaith center, so it's good to listen to everybody's view. Now, in the Christian point of view, because Jesus, especially if you interpret the scripture the way I'm interpreting it, Jesus has the keys of death and hell. Now, I believe there is no hell. And even my interpretation of that verse, I can stand on it to say that because Jesus has the keys, nobody is going to hell. Yes. And then because he also has the keys of death, it means everybody who dies in the world, Jesus knows. Yes, he knows. And he knows how everybody is going to die. Everybody, according to that verse. Because he has the keys of death and hell. And then hell, he locked it up. It's empty. He took everybody, including Judas, went to heaven. Yes. So that's my stand on hell. Of course, there are very many uh, discussions about hell. One of them, and which I stand on, this one I have is another one. And there's someone asking a question here. What do you think happened about what has happened? Yes, I think it's deplorable. It's sad, but it was inevitable. The world has been in cultural wars ever since the beginning of the uh, cultural interactions. Do you know in 1950 the West had no Muslim population? Very minor, very small Muslim population in 1950. Go and look at the demographics. They had a very minute Muslim population. Today, even in America, Muslims are less than 5% of the American population. Of 300 million Americans, Muslims are less than 5%. So what does that mean? It means most of the West has really not felt Islam. In fact, Africa is more used to staying with Muslims than the West. Reason being, for historical reasons, Africa, the Muslims came to Africa earlier. They have lived in Africa for almost 700 years. And then Christianity came in. So that's what you need to know. That's why there are very few terror attacks in Africa, even though they are there, because of the long relations we've had with Muslims. But the West, as I've told you, in 1950, Mr. Slim, the West has, in 1950, there was no Muslim population. Today, they have 7% Muslims, 10% Muslims, 5% Muslims. That's what you need to know. That demographic change is so significant because Muslims have a different culture, totally different culture from that of the West. So because of that difference in culture, there is bound to be tensions. And now the problem is, again, the Muslim population is a new immigrant population. And you have to understand, they have come with a new culture. It's no different to what happened to the Jews. When the Jews went to stay in Europe after the destruction of Jerusalem, they moved to Europe. They went with a different culture. And remember, they were not taken captive to Europe like they used to be taken captive to Babylon. They went to Europe by force. What happened in Syria recently is what happened in Israel in AD 70 and going forward. So Israelis, Jews, ran to Europe. When they ran to Europe, they kept their culture of Judaism. In fact, rabbinical Judaism started in Europe properly. Rabbis were part of the system even before they went to Europe. But when they went to Europe, there was no temple, but they wanted to keep their culture. So they had to have the system. That's when they started building synagogues and all of these things. And this is what you need to know. A culture is big because when you have a culture, you carry your cultural symbols. And that's what they did. They carried their cultural symbols to Europe. So, because it was a very new culture, Europeans responded with vitriol, and the uh, the Europeans attacked Jews in Spain. They were expelled, and there was even there was a small inquisition. They expelled Jews out of Spain. They expelled Jews out of England, and there were very many attacks on Jews for thousands of years because their culture was different from that of the European. So now this is a repeat. What we are seeing in the West, the Muslims are now migrating to Europe because of war, just like Israel was in war when Rome attacked Israel. Now, because there is war in Syria and other Muslim world countries, they have run to the West, and the West is fighting them. Well, the good thing about the West, it's not the governments in the West fighting the Muslims, though there are some governments which are becoming too right wing and they are attacking Muslims. But countries like Germany, they are trying. But there's a very dangerous wave of nationalism that is causing this to happen. So that's why this attack happened. I blame it on the rise of nationalism. Nationalism is based on xenophobia. You know, people fear foreigners. They don't want to see them. They only want to see people they know, they are used to. It's very animalistic. Yes, animals are very nationalist. I'm telling you. It is humans who, we are animals, but we can unlearn some animalistic behaviors like fear, like misunderstanding. Yes, we are animals. And if we do not unlearn certain things, we will attack each other. It's a fact. Lions attack wildebeests because there is no understanding. So that's why you're seeing non-Muslims are attacking Muslims. There is no understanding. Those people have not sat down to understand Islam. And that's why you have this center here. Okay, Mr. Slim is going on to say, I believe it was an inside mission. The man had training and knew what he was doing. He also knew what at time a lot of Muslims would be inside, so he had been scouting the place for a long time. Yes, it is. Yes, it is true. Well, even if it was an inside mission or not an inside mission, it's not the issue. The issue is people have died. That is the issue. Secondly, this guy had written a manifesto, 87-page manifesto, saying how he hates the Muslim immigrants coming to New Zealand. Now remember, that side of the West, it's even very controlled immigration. They don't just let anybody come there, especially Muslims. They have really gone through hell to get to Australia and New Zealand. So you have to understand the reason. It's because the indigenous people, the citizens of those countries, are still not tolerating Muslims. It's a very quiet. In fact, Muslims don't feel free in those countries. Remember Australia, they also had a terrorist attack. Yes. You see, cultural tensions are there. So it is this guy who did that attack. He didn't even really have to study. He was just disturbed that Muslims are coming to our country. And he's listening to a lot of right-wing ideology that we are tired of having immigrants who do not understand our culture, who do not want to submit to our culture. That is what that guy is eating. He's eating that propaganda. And this is what we've been saying in our videos and even on our secular channel, Rex Arthur, that there is something big going to happen in the world constitutionally. people are going to challenge a lot of speech, freedom of speech. Do you know the wars that are going to come? They are immense wars because people are, the governments of this world have realized people are abusing their freedoms. You see, that is the war. And people are saying, no, you can't stop us from exercising our constitutional freedoms, like the freedom of speech. So that's where the war is. Because this guy wrote a manifesto. You know, in his country, under the constitution, he can't be arrested for that manifesto. Yes, he can't. Because it's a political view. There are even political parties that believe in that, what is in that manifesto. It's that hard. So my friend Mr. Slim, yeah, we have a lot of work in the world. There is a lot of work in the world, and the only thing we can do is be optimistic. That's why this channel is here. We saw the problem. Samuel Huntington saw this long time ago. By 1992, he already predicted that the world is going to have a clash of civilizations. That's what Samuel Huntington saw. And so, because of what Samuel Huntington saw, he saw Muslims, the Islamic civilization fighting the Christian civilization, the Hindu civilization fighting the Islamic civilization. Like, look, Indians were celebrating. Some Indians were celebrating. And remember, this is a few weeks after Pakistan and India have been fighting the same problem, Muslims versus Hindus, Kashmir. Are you seeing? Samuel Huntington predicted the wars of the 21st century, and they were going to be cultural, they are cultural, and they are civilization wars. I mean, look what's happening in America. It's because of cultural wars. Yes. Why do you build a wall? It's because there is a foreigner who is coming. And if you don't watch it, the foreigner will take over. You see, that's the thing that's scaring some Americans. Because if Mexico was filled with white Americans, you know, they would not be worried. They would not build a wall. They are building a wall because there are foreigners coming to the country. So serious, they're even changing the laws. You see, even Trump wanted to stop anchor babies. Yes. Wanted to change because he knew this is how foreigners will come, and then a few years later, they have taken over the country. So that's the problem we're having. There's a lot of nationalism is rising because people are going back to their animalistic tendencies and instincts. And it's because of the economic situation. Because I believe when the economy is good, people do not look for someone to blame. But when the economy is bad, people look for someone to blame. And the first person they blame is a foreigner or someone with a different culture. That's why the LGBT community is always used as a scapegoat. It's because they are different. So when things go bad, blame it on the gays. Now you see what's happening in Australia and New Zealand? Gays are now legal. Yes. Being gay is no longer a crime. So what does that mean? You cannot be used as a scapegoat. But if you are different, like if you're a Muslim, especially a Muslim, you can be a Hindu. They don't mind Hindus, they mind Muslims. So when you're a Muslim, they will discriminate against you. And when the economy is not doing well, they'll blame it on you. When they see you succeeding, they will say you're being, they are favoring you, and all of that causes anger, and next thing you know, you kill. That's what has happened. So it's a very interesting. It was. That's what I'm saying. It was inevitable. It's inevitable as long as when you want to cook cyanide, you need ingredients. That's what has happened in the West, and the only way they can cure it is when they take charge of the education system. Take charge of the education system and teach tolerance, especially in the social sciences, from elementary school to university. They have to teach tolerance. They have to teach people different world views. I was privileged to be in a university here in Africa where we were taught different world views. Yes, we were taught about every religion. Reason, we had to learn how to live together. You have to learn. You see, animals, they are problem. They can't learn. But humans can learn. So you can learn how to live with somebody else when you know what they believe in. So that's why we have this channel. This channel is a product of what I learned in university. It was based on that knowledge that I have to learn about different religions and philosophies so that I can live with those people. When I meet a Muslim, I don't panic. When I see a Hindu, I don't panic. When I meet an atheist, I don't panic. When I meet a Satanist, I don't panic. He's a human being. You see, that's what you're supposed to learn every religion, every philosophy. And then you question them. Question where they have weaknesses. Because every philosophy and theology has errors. Yes, it has weaknesses. In logic, in thought. Yes. That's what you need to know. There are some religions that discriminate against gays. It's wrong. Because being gay is scientifically proven. There are some religions that subjugate women. It's wrong. Because a woman is a human being. She should be free to do what she wants. So those things can only be unlearned by teaching them the truth. That's why the world is headed to unity in diversity. It is a paradox. People say that we should be uniform. Yes, we are going to become uniform. We are headed to singularity. We'll be united but diverse. Meaning, you will be a Muslim, I will be a Christian, but we agree. That's where we are going. So what you're seeing, these things of attacks, they are going to subside as people now sit down together, have discussions, and learn to agree to be diverse. Okay, so that's my 2 cents to what has happened in Christchurch. Don't worry, things are going to get better. But please understand this, we are in a phase where there are very many cultural wars. And Samuel Huntington said it. Yes, it's a clash of civilizations. Now, the advantage is, or the good thing is, more and more people are becoming tolerant. They are reading. Yes, everybody who is watching this, go and read about Islam. Go and don't read about it in a bad way. You see, there's a way to read like this. The shooter, he's reading it with an eye like, I hate Islam. So when I'm reading it, I want to look for the verses where they sound very bad. No, that's not. I'm saying be objective in your reading. Be objective in your reading of Islam. Be objective in reading of your religion. Very objective. Put aside feelings. Just bring your head and question. Yes. You know what I tell people in religion? You can question your God. Yes, you can. Well, some religions, you have to understand, you can't question their God. You see, that's now the problem we are having. When we have interactions with other religions, there are religions which you can't question your God. Have you noticed on Twitter, there is an account, a Twitter handle called God, but there's no Twitter handle called Allah. It's because in Islam, they don't have that relationship whereby you can question the Almighty. But in Christianity, you can question God. Job questioned God, and he came and answered him. So that is why we can question God in Christianity. But in Islam, you can't. So because of that, you have to take, when you're studying such religions, be very cautious. Then secondly, when terrorism happens, don't look at the religion of the attacker, because any religion can commit an act of terror. Look at the mental state of that person, because a normal person, a sane person, in my view, cannot kill people like that. Yes, I believe. Do you know why prison is there? Prison is there because those people, if they are unleashed in society, they can cause mayhem. So what does that mean? Those are mentally insane people. And even if you had malice in what you did, you had malice, it is, that malice is still a product of a bad brain, a malfunctioning brain. So they put you aside. You're put aside from society. Society is not allowed to see you. So that's what is happening. That's my view. That's what like, especially Islamic terrorism, they are all mad. Yes, all completely mad. Because how is it that you're attacking somebody who is of a different religion? Just think of it. It's not normal. This person has not attacked you. You're going to kill him. You know, even murder cases, there is malice because the person has done something to you. You know, so they go and kill them. But this one, what is it? The guy has gone to pray, and you're there, you want to shoot them. You've gone bananas. Like that guy who shot, 80% he drank too much of right-wing politics. Too much of it, and it got into his head. And yes, and that's what I'm saying. That terrorism has to be discussed with mental health. What somebody has studied, what someone has digested. Because as if you've been following my videos, we are what we read. We are what we listen to. If you listen to hate, you will hate. Yes. If you listen to hate, you will hate. That's why you see in the West, when you find Bible preachers preaching homophobic verses, they even arrest those preachers. They are right to do that, because the person is preaching hate. You see, he's preaching hate. So because when you preach a verse against a gay person, you're basically saying, I'm telling you you're bad and you should be killed, because that verse of against the gays, it says killing. Now imagine someone who is mentally deranged listening to you. You know, because you have to know, take care of religious people. People who are religious, take care of them. They do things like zombies. Yes, this is why mental health practitioners have to really study religion. Yes, they have to, because majority of religionistas, they are zombies. They are controlled by what they read, and they have a lot of hate in them. because of what they have read. It's no different from, there's no difference between a Christian terrorist and a Muslim terrorist. No difference. No difference. They are all zombies. And that's what you need to understand about terrorism. So I believe it's a time the mental health practitioners need to sit down and understand, make fundamentalism, even political fundamentalism. Like you see, people are complaining about white supremacists. Yes, those are mentally deranged people. The facts are clear. Science is clear. Humans are one. There is no race greater than another race. It is scientifically proven. No race greater than another race. Whether one race has built half of the world or the other race has built nothing. It means nothing. It means nothing. We are all the same. We all die. Whites die, blacks die. So that's equality. Now, if you're a human being and you don't believe that, after we tell it to you more than twice that we are equal, then you're mad. That's why these days I don't argue with homophobes. Yes, I believe if I give you scientific evidence about gays and you're a homophobe and you still do homophobia, in my books you're mentally insane, because there is no need. Why are you homophobic when the evidence is clear? Why are you Islamophobic when the evidence is clear that a Muslim, there's no difference between a Muslim and a Christian? They are all religious. They all want God. They are just seeking God in different ways. So that's what you need to understand. Mental derangement in line with criminal activity, like especially terrorism, that needs to be looked at. And especially philosophical, having data that drives you to hate people. You see, homophobia, do you know why it is very common in religious situations? It's because there is data. There is written data that is against gay people. It's there. They have verses. Do you know why Indians are not homophobic? They have no verses in their Hindu texts, their religious texts, that attack gays. No verses. That's why they are not homophobic. But in Christian and Muslim countries, they are homophobic because they have texts. If those texts are not written in Islam and Christianity, believe you me, there would be no homophobia in the Arab world, and there would be no homophobia in the Christian world. But because they have the texts, there is homophobia. Oh, we can talk about this over and over again. And then thirdly and lastly, we are also going to deal with the exclusivity in religion. Religions have to be reformed to be inclusive, to welcome everybody. Every religion has to be reformed to welcome everybody. You see, that inclusivity, it kills very many terrorist organizations, including the KKK. Did you see what Wesley Snipes did? This the Black Klansman. Do you know why that movie is very good? It is good because a black person was not allowed to be a member of the KKK. A Catholic was not allowed to be part of the KKK. A Jew was not allowed to be part of the KKK. What is that? Exclusivity. How do you kill an organization that's exclusive? preach inclusivity. That will, do you know how to kill the KKK? Tell them to be inclusive. They will collapse. Because their theory is hate. Hate the Jew, hate the black, hate the Catholic. Now, when you reform the KKK, love the Jew, love the black, love the Catholic. That's the end of their dogma. There will be no war. There will be no enemy. You see, people need to understand Black Panther, the organization, and very many black groups that fought against KKK were created in retaliation to the KKK and the failure of the national government to protect the blacks from the KKK. You see, this is why Malcolm X was violent. It was not because he felt that, hey, we are being killed by whites and the government is doing nothing about it. In fact, even the death of Martin Luther King had a negative effect on the black civil rights movement because it made some black civil rights movement leaders to be violent. Because they said if Martin Luther King was not protected, then who are we to stay without guns? And that's what happened. So you have to understand, some groups are created because of the violence of the other group. That's what even happened. Even Islamic terrorism is based on the ideology of the old crusades, that the Christians came and invaded our lands. So anytime you see the West in Muslim lands respond with terrorism, it's based on violence. If the West was not violent to them, there would be perhaps no Islamic terrorism. Because Muslims are very peaceful people. Yes, the nominal Muslim, oh my goodness, so calm. Is the fundamentalist Muslim, the one who is angry with life, that rises up and remembers history and attacks. And then when he attacks the West, the fundamentalists in the West wake up and then attack the Muslims. You see, the cycle. Let's hope Muslim fundamentalists don't wake up and do an attack, because that's the ping pong game that will happen. Anyway, I've already told you how to solve it. Inclusivity. Allow people to be together. All religions, allow Muslims to come to church, and Muslims allow Christians to come to the mosque. Yes, that's how we will kill our divisions. Otherwise, if we still don't have that inclusivity, then please don't wait. Don't think there's going to be peace. We will have more and more terror attacks all over the world. Okay, guys, see you. Thank you for joining us. And peace be still in the families and the hearts of Muslim persons, New Zealanders, and the people of the world.